Now we're live. We are live here today at for S1 Bookstore in Leimert Park, Los Angeles. We're here today to visit with Three Rooms Press author Christopher Chambers and Three Rooms Press author Gary Phillips, along with a new book he has out called Matthew Henson and the Ice Castle. What is it? The Ice Who? The Ice. Damn, what did I do? Matthew Henson and the Ice Dragon of Harlem. Is that it? Gary, what is it?
It's Matthew Henson and the Ice Temple of Harlem.
Ice Temple, damn it.
There
Sorry,
you go.
baby.
That's all right.
All right. Okay, we're coming back with you.
All right.
You'll be right back. Here's Gary. He's coming back. Why didn't I get that right? Anyhow, that's on Polis Books, Agora. And it has come out this past Tuesday. And Chris has Scavenger, and we're here for S1 Bookstore in Los Angeles. It's been there, I think, 30 years, and it's one of the most prestigious Black businesses, bookstore businesses in the country. And we're here to support that today with Gary and Chris. I'm Peter Karloftis with Three Rooms Press. And I'm in New York. Chris is in D.C. and Gary's out there in his hometown of L.A. And let's bring up the boys. Here's Christopher Chambers. He's got Scavenger on Three Rooms Press. Hello, Chris.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
And
I can't believe I forgot Gary's Ice Temple. So,
when you go Ice Palace, Ice Temple, you know, it's just, you got the ice part right. All we need to know about is Matt Henson because he's the
I should have
star.
just said Matthew Henson. I feel terrible now. Okay, let's bring up Gary. He'll help
Chris,
me out
hello,
here.
Peter.
Ice
Again.
Temple of Harlem. We're going to talk some about those books. But first, let's talk about Essawan and your relationship with that. Gary, you've had a long relationship with Essawan, right?
Oh yes, both James and Tom, the owners of the bookstore, who are currently now in Leimert Park, but they weren't always in Leimert Park. They actually had, if I recall correctly, yes, I specifically recall at least two other locations over the years, and they've they're really an institution here in Los Angeles, and as you said, one of the premier Black bookstores in the country. And they're a great group, and I guess the pandemic, of course, has affected all bookstores, but I do know because I've been over there since the first lockdown. I guess we're in the second lockdown now, but I was over there in the first lockdown to get some books, and they've been holding on. So hopefully this will help tonight. But of course, at least the vaccine is somewhere on the horizon, so maybe at some point we'll actually all be going out again without fear of contamination, or at least the usual contaminations as opposed to strange and weird contaminations.
We do have the links up on the comments. Here's a link to buy Scavenger. So you can go to the comments, or there'll be a little rolling deal at the bottom. And then also this is for Matthew Henson. Those are the links. They're in the comments. If you click on there, you can go right to the book. And I was talking to James, or reading about he had Barack Obama there years and years ago before he was even a senator, I think. And I think they said they sat in a circle for his first book, and there were like 9 of them for Dreams of My Father. And and then when Obama, Senator Obama, did his other book, The Audacity of Hope, he said he wanted to come back to Essawan, and they had 900 people there. It's one of the great events of Essawan's history. And let's see if he comes back now for the new book.
Yeah,
maybe fill up all of Leimert Park. Anyhow, it is a worthy cause to. That's why we're driving the business to their bookstore today to buy either Chris's book or Gary's book.
By both, baby.
By both, and also we have these two also.
Exactly.
That we've all three done together.
That's right.
The Obama inheritance and the faking of the president.
And Chris
so
and I
you
did
can buy them all.
Chris and I did a signing of the Obama inheritance at Esalen live in person.
We did that 3 years ago.
Yeah. 3 years ago already. My God.
And I think Eric and Travis and Danny and Desiree were all there.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, they were there.
That's right.
That was a fun night.
It was
a big house. The mariachi bar afterward.
Exactly. That's right. That's exactly right.
It was like a strip joint pool hall with mariachis.
All right. It's okay.
One of a kind place. Yeah. So, Chris, we published Scavenger in last month in October, and we've had some very good reviews. You wrote a great essay on Crime Reads. Gary, you published your book came out this past Tuesday.
Right.
Matthew Henson, and you also had an essay in Crime Reads. Back in February. I guess that was that was the pub date, and then it changed. But even so, I thought both of your essays were really, spot on with what your subject is and what your subject is, Chris, and what you're talking about in there about, let's say you go back to the Continental Op or something, and there's a little minor character who, shines his shoe or whatever the hell the guy does. Right today, these guys are the ones with the stories. Now, the Continental Op had his day, and it's time to give everyone their due and what they're capable of achieving in this world, whether it's good or bad. You know what I mean? It could be just as bad as it can be good. And it's just, what was your word? Or you were in, you and Sean were talking about something the other day about, it was, the hell, where is it? I had it right here.
In my essay?
Diversity, where is it? Inflection point. The inflection point. Right?
Well, he said, I quoted him in the essay, and he said that the people who were once sidekicks and window dressing are now driving the fiction, basically.
The narrative, yes.
Yeah, the narrative. And he, and if you look at, the mystery genre now and crime fiction and indeed, Gary's book, straddles a lot of stuff, but it's pulp primarily. If you look at that, people of color are, we're kind of the little engine that's driving a lot of this stuff. And I think that's a good thing because, you need the new blood to keep it moving, because if you don't have the new blood, it's just going to stagnate.
Yes. And it's entirely the way it should be. This is where we're supposed to be at. And we're going to continue to keep things that way. We're going to just work that way to make sure that every story has a picture, Right. It used to be every picture has a story. Well, it's the other way around now. There's a story for every picture in everybody's mind. So Gary, you had a lot to say about Matthew Henson and how, let's say, his first book. I thought the way you described his first book that he wrote back in the day, Matthew Henson had an autobiography.
Right. Well, it wasn't really even an autobiography. It's called A Negro Explorer at the North Pole, which is actually pretty accurate because really it just recounts his time with Perry and the Inuit who he came to not only admire, but also he's the one among the only one on the various expeditions that were mounted who actually learned the Inuit or some of the Inuit languages, some of the dialect. And he was the one that, communicated with these guys, because it's not for nothing. It was Henson, Perry, and 4 Inuit gentlemen, Siglu, his brother, and two others who I do mention in the book. In fact, they play roles. They humanize them in the book, which they were never humanized, at least in history. And it kind of gets to a point you and Chris were just talking about, which is to say, Henson is a real figure. He was an actual figure from history, but he was never given his due, right? Because even though when he came back from when they finally reached the North Pole after I guess it was the 8th try when they finally make it to the North Pole, he was feted in Harlem. Actually, Henson did live in Harlem, but in terms of the larger world, it was Perry who got the accolades, and certainly nobody mentioned the 4 Inuit gentlemen, who had been in on the expedition as well. Had been on several expeditions as well, and so part of the drive in the book is obviously it is a pulp adventure. It's set in 1928, so it's the it's the Harlem Renaissance, sort of the tail end of the Harlem Renaissance. The crash, of course, is going to happen in 29, and the Great Depression will be on. But at this moment, where the book starts, or where the book is set, things are kind of happening. I mean, things are, it's a big intellectual and political and artistic firmament within Harlem, and there's several characters who show up, including Queenie St. Clair, who was another real figure, who was one of the boss of the numbers racket in Harlem. Dutch Schultz is trying to crowd in on the numbers racket from the Bronx, and Bessie Coleman, who was the first female black aviatrix to get her license, her pilot's license, although she had to go study in France, I might point that out, but who got her license in America finally. And Nikola Tesla shows up as well. So it's all in the mix in the book.
How could he not show up, Nikola?
Of course, absolutely.
That's right. That's Thomas Edison.
Exactly. That's right. That's right.
And of course, Perry was
Tesla is the man.
Perry was much celebrated, and of course, Henson didn't get his due. Perry was buried in Arlington, right? And
Henson was eventually buried in Arlington, but I say this, I give an acknowledgement in the book, and I've said this in several times now when we've talked about the book, and I think I know about it. I wrote it in print. The great thing about when I read Henson's book is the edition that I have. The introduction was by a man named S. Allen Counter. And S. Allen Counter was I think he was a neurophysicist. I believe that's what he was. But anyway, I know he was a hard scientist. He was a Harvard scientist. He was black, but he was something of a Hensonologist. And so he, in his introduction, hints at some things that Henson doesn't talk about in the somewhat sedate memoir of his book. And so therefore it sent me then, once I read that book, then I had to read Counter's book. And Counter's book is the one that really starts to get the ball rolling in terms of my mind about Henson, because not only does Counter talk about, and I guess this was somewhat of an open secret, but both, not surprisingly, given the 6-month-long nights in up in that part of Greenland, up to the North Pole, both Henson and Perry had some Inuit children,
right?
And so the Henson Inuit son plays a role, or will play a role, hopefully when I get to the second book. But in the first book, he's mentioned, and it's a thing that's bugging Henson that he hasn't seen his son in several years. But also, it was S. Allen Counter who, at the time, petitioned President Reagan, and it was and it worked, and he got Henson's body moved, I think, from wherever it was, because Henson was from Maryland, where he was buried in Maryland.
Yeah, I think it was in Rockville or something like
that. That sounds right. Yeah. And he was transferred to Arlington Cemetery. But it took all that time, and it took this man, Professor Counter, to make it happen.
I have to say, I mean, Gary, that Harlem at that time, I mean, you didn't have to make that much up, because I mean, you insert him into a thing where you got Dutch Schultz, and at that point he was about to break from the Italian, he was sort of the Italian mafia, and a corrupt city, and you got everybody from Langston Hughes to Madame St. Clair up there. I mean, You don't really have to make up that much.
No,
I mean,
you're right. It was such a rich, rich tapestry.
amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
It was easy to kind of pulp it up there too.
Oh, yeah. And some of those people, Langston Hughes and some of the jazz musicians, they kind of make little cameo appearances in and out of the book. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you got a starred review in the book list, and they're talking in there about it being a series already. So these are great energy for you, Gary.
There we go.
And I'm still waiting for my copy.
I've yet to get my copies too. I mean, apparently
you haven't gotten yours yet? Come on.
Bookstore, but I've yet to see the doggone thing. So yes, I've been anxious myself.
Just don't have Henson's Inuit son. The reason they know he's the Inuit son is because he puts hot sauce on the whale blubber.
That's it, baby. That's right. Exactly. That's right.
All right, hey, Chris, we have you with Scavenger. You've got a protagonist, your narrator, Dickie Cornish, is a homeless drug addict on the streets of Washington, D.C. And one of the things that really drew me to your book was how clear and concise and how in depth D.C. is explored, the streets that nobody knows about, let alone have explored in depth in fiction. You brought the city to life in its entirety, and I thought that was a really admirable accomplishment.
Well, I mean, I think the days of the old DC book, the old Robert Ludlum hardcover where there's
it's all just government.
It's gobbledygook now. I mean, Trump has obviated all that stuff. So you got the plots of all these big novels in the 80s. They're gone now. It's like, who cares? But you have no place else to go but the streets now. It's hard not to. I mean, and I've talked before with Gary and everybody about George Pelecanos. I mean, and he and I've spoken recently too. And he said, I mean, now especially the streets are the only place to go to get these stories, because you got people on the bottom, let's just say, looking up, and they tell the most compelling stories. The thing that I wanted to show, however, was that this guy was a flawed, human being, to the point where, when I had to do that when I wrote the narrative in second person, which is the voice in his head. It's no secret that it's a psychotic voice, and it's his very abusive father. I even wanted to show how there's some redemptive qualities even there, because as he starts to artificially and then by his own strength, clean up and think more clearly, even that voice in his head is more about preserving him. Although it might be the way a parasite preserves its host. A parasite's not going to kill its host, but just to show how he starts to think more clearly, and he starts to be more serious about his role and what he has to do. Because he's got this Faustian bargain now where he's clean and he's wearing normal clothes and he's not on the street and he's not in the shelter, and he's trying to help people who are on the street and the shelter and enroll them to help him in this mystery. And but at what cost? At what cost is he now normal? And he has to face that and look at an uncertain future, a scary future that's probably scarier than sleeping in a canvas bag by the Smithsonian. So those are the type of stories that you're going to see more of with this city. This capital city as a basis, because and they're coming out. There are going to be more books about this kind of a thing, and whether they're YA or very literary fiction. That's the kind of stuff that people are looking for when they think about what this city means, and they're not going to be looking at political intrigue anymore because it's boring now.
Yeah, that's what we're all looking for, I think. And what you do to the streets there is just it's such great writing and great work bringing those to life.
I think Chris has hit on a great point about that. This question of it is very interesting to think about now. I mean, in a soon to be, well, it won't be a post-Trump world, sad to say, but it is very interesting to think about the effects of Trump, you know, the QAnon, the conspiracies, blah, 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 all this stuff that's spinning out of control, and that you have, you know, a certain segment of, you know, spineless politicians who have to kowtow to that, so that in fact, right, that they are making themselves, you know, bankrupt certainly in terms of any moral leadership, and so exactly that. I mean, that by definitions means that this resonance has to come up, has to come up from the streets, has to come from the grassroots,
and things aren't going to
be found.
Things aren't going to get better quickly. I mean, I'm writing a sequel now, and you know, it's not all, you know, it's like, you know, when the witch died in the Wizard of Oz,
right,
it didn't end. You know,
exactly.
You see, even in the what is my sister's favorite show, The Mandalorian.
Right.
The Death Star has been blown up, but the galaxy's still in chaos.
That's right.
And there's still a bunch of these stormtroopers still running around. So I mean, it's gonna, you know, it's still fertile ground for a lot of misery.
Right.
And you know, and that's where you can take your cues and tell your stories.
That's right.
And Gary, you're right about Trump too, because it's like, why? I mean, all these guys used to go to who had the money, you know, who was lobbying you. Now they're going. Now they're kowtowing to a bankrupt person. What kind of thinking is this?
No, he must have powerful voodoo. I think that you know that doc who was going to give him the magic dust to save him or whatever it was.
Yeah, right.
He's got some powerful gree. That's all I can figure out, man. He's got like charm bags for each one of these guys, and I don't know what it is, but it is absolutely astonishing. It is amazing. It's amazing.
It's just incredible how you know. I don't know. I don't see it. You know, I don't see it at all.
And they're terrified that he might run again in 4 years.
Yep.
They're absolutely there. I just listened. You know, I was listening to MSNBC a little earlier. You know, the whole notion that it would stunt anybody who's thinking, you know, from the GOP side of running,
right.
You know, for the nomination.
Who want to start moving now? Yeah,
right. We'll start moving now. Well, how do they do it? How does Ted Cruz position himself again, or how does whoever Marco Rubio, whatever, you know, how do they position themselves now, thinking that the shadow, this crazy shadow looms over them? No matter what, you know, which way they turn.
You know, the thing is, as bad as it is, when you look at the time period where you have Matt Henson, you know, operating, you know, either the polar explorations or in the 20s. I mean, as bad as it is, it was 100 times worse.
Oh man! Oh no!
I mean, well, you know, I mean, I think people when they look at like the Harlem Renaissance, they look at somebody like of his stature, even in a fiction story, as you have him, and he's an adventurer and he's up in Harlem. But you know, you leave Harlem.
That's right.
And it's hell.
Exactly. You know, and I make that point a couple of different times in the book.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you know, Henson is self-aware that, like, I'm kind of, you know, what is it, a big fish in a small pond. But I step my ass down, you know, downtown, man. You know?
Yeah. You don't have to go to Alabama. You just have to go downtown.
Exactly.
You are. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Well, Dickie Cornish, your guy gets around in DC, but he also has to, you know, stay kind of in his place, so to say, you know, in that underground world to survive. I mean, Matthew Henson got a small pension, right, or a small stipend when he had his job, and he got a cheap pension when he stopped working for real.
In fact, Congress gave Perry a pension.
Right.
Several at least decent thinking Congress people tried to advance a pension for Henson, but I guess we would call them now the Dixiecrats blocked it each time. So he did get a pension, but it was a really small job, because he worked he really, in the reality, he worked as a clerk in the customs house. And so he got a very paltry little pension when he retired from the customs house.
But as your story says, that he did save Perry's life a few times out
Yeah,
there, you know,
yeah,
it
at
deserved
least once, if not
easily.
twice. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Uta, who figures in the story, saved Henson's life, and
Well,
Uta,
here's
we see Uta
here's
show up in the story.
here's where to buy the book here. If you want to click on the comments, that's for Gary's book, Matthew Henson and the Ice Temple of Harlem. And we also have that's Scavenger. Here's
That's
Matthew
evident.
Henson.
There it is. Yeah.
And
All
then
good.
here's Scavenger. You can order them both by clicking on either link in the comments.
There you go.
And then we have, I'll put the little banner back up for each book. We'll switch every now and then. And maybe we can, you want to read a little bit from your book, Chris?
Well, I want to hear from his. I mean, his.
You want to hear?
out.
Why don't you read from yours, Gary? Since
Well,
we haven't seen it yet.
I'm just going to read a very quick passage.
Well, take your time. We're going to go off and just
Well, we're already at half an hour, so you don't want to.
No.
Keep it. All right, there we go. Here we go. I'm back again. All right, so I'm just going to read a very quick little introduction, a couple of pages here in the intro to the book, and just to set the scene, Henson has been employed by I guess we would say, or my daddy would say, my daddy was from Texas, he would say a jackleg preacher. And this character is called Daddy Paradise. And for those of you who are something of historical buffs, know something about the real life Father Divine and Daddy Grace, who were actually two actual spiritual leaders of the day. And so this character is a kind of combining both of those guys. And but his grown daughter has been kidnapped by Dutch Schultz's gangsters. All this figures in the bigger plot that gets revealed. But Daddy Paradise has financial interests in the business interests of Queenie St. Clair. Queenie St. Clair has taken the money she is earned from the numbers game and has reinvested it into Harlem. And she gives loans to small mom and pop black businesses who can't get the loans from the white banks uptown. But all that, of course, I should say white banks downtown, excuse me. But all that gets revealed in the course of the book. But right now, we're just going to start with a little bit where Henson is going to essentially rescue the daughter. And he's come into this woman's apartment who's above the apartment he wants to go into. I'm sorry to intrude on your quietude, Mrs. CeeLo. The late Mr. was a railroad man, old child. He traveled all over this country on them rails. She looked off toward a mantel with various framed photos on it, as well as a good-sized Santa Fe Railroad enameled shield. Yes, ma'am, where would we be without the railroads? He eyed the window across the room, but wasn't going to rush things and make her more nervous. No matter what might be transpiring just below them, he'd learned long ago, in far harsher climes, to pace himself. Lord, yes, she went on, our people's means of freedom in many ways. Isn't that right? He prayed they weren't about to have a revival. That is so. He inched forward a notch. Would you like some tea? She offered, but instead of the kitchen, she glanced toward her sideboard and its lead glass cabinets. Though I imagine an outdoorsman like yourself might want something a mite more bracing. About that there window, Mrs. CeeLo. Oh, yes, she started as if waking from slumber. You didn't come here to chit-chat. Maybe some other time when the clock's not against me. She beamed up at him. Really? Would you come speak to the auxiliary as my special guest? I would be delighted. The ladies would be beside themselves, Mr. Henson. Matt will do. She clapped her hands together appreciatively. Fine, fine. He went on past her to the window. He undid the lock and slid it up easily. After moving her easy chair and lamp aside, he secured his pronged grapple hook on the frame and sill. The sharp ends dug into the wood and would leave gouge marks, but there was no helping that. Mrs. CeeLo didn't raise a fuss, being too polite, he figured. Is this a government mission, Mr. Matt? The widow asked as he put a leg outside the open window. No, this is a private engagement, Mrs. CeeLo. I see, she said, her dubiousness evident. Henson was aware there was a persistent rumor that many believed he was an operative for an outfit called the International Detective Agency. There was no such organization, but he knew the source had been a serialized story in a magazine several years ago called The Black Sleuth. Elements of the popular story got transferred from the page, as these things do, into speculation in conversations in cafes and beauty salons throughout Harlem and elsewhere. From there, over time, fiction took on the trappings of gossip, which always had its own reality. I'm thinking, once you're gone, you're not coming back tonight. He was half out the window. Unlikely. How do I get in touch with you? She asked. Just leave word for me at May's Diner. Over on Linux? Yes, ma'am. Near 132nd. Now, if you would, once I'm outside, please don't go near the window, he added, figuring she might take a gander as he descended. He also hoped bullets wouldn't be coming through to ruin her nice flooring from the story below. Very well, she said resignedly. He was depriving her of some of the excitement of having Matt Henson in her apartment, but she'd still have more than enough to tell her church lady friends. His booted soles firm against the building's bricks, Henson, who slipped on supple seal-skin gloves, held himself in place on the rope a few inches below the older lady's window. He'd lowered the sash, cognizant the warmth of the day was giving way to the early evening, and not everyone liked the cold as he did. From where he was now, the window he wanted was below him to his left. He clambered down and cursed under his breath. The curtains were drawn. No way to tell what was going on inside, except a slight gap between the curtains to show the lights were on. Henson worked the rope around his veined forearm, holding his body in place. His other hand free, he got his axe loose. He had one of his miniature smoke bombs with him, as well as an incendiary type. The latter was based on a grenade developed by the Germans toward the close of World War I. He wasn't of a mind to start a fire in the room beyond, at least if he didn't have to, but better to be prepared. Henson clenched the axe handle between his teeth and, unlimbering the rope, got both hands on it as he slipped down again. He came to rest just above the curtained window, not worried if those inside detected movement or not. What had that blowhard Perry always barked? Find a way or make one, Henson. Well, shit. He smiled thinly as he pushed backward once, twice, and on the third timing, muttering whoop, halloo, got enough arc as he swung back toward the building and let go of the rope. His boots and legs burst through the glass. Though it looked like he would land on his butt, the airborne Henson tucked his body into a ball, and he landed nearly in a roll. One side of the curtains ripped from his pole as the material caught in the fold of his leg. A hood who'd been sitting in a chair eating a sandwich gaped at the unexpected entrance. He spat roast beef and tomato from his mouth, his hand darting for a .45 in a shoulder holster draped on the back of a chair. He got the gun in his fist, but too late. Henson was upright and sprang on him. "You goddamn jumping jigaboo," the white gunman blared. "Jump on this," Henson said as he punched the man in the side of his head. He stumbled sideways, dazed. A pocket door to another room slammed home. A second gunman in a garish tire came out firing a drum-loaded Thompson machine gun. He raked the room in a sweep of bullets, hunks of wood, cloth, and porcelain flying everywhere as the rounds blistered furniture and exploded the bric-a-brac. "Watch where you're shooting, Eddie," the one Henson had struck yelled. He crawled behind a wingback chair. "Oh, stop being a crybaby," Eddie groused. He looked around, not sure where their intruder had gone. There was a swinging door to the kitchen, and several bullet holes had penetrated the entrance. "He must be in there," said the first hood. "Well, hell, he's as good as on the slab." Eddie started forward, sending another burst through the door. That's it for now.
All right, Gary. Beautiful job.
Thank you.
And it's an interesting thing. I'm sure. Just to ask you how what kind of a gateway or a breakthrough can you make dealing with race in this capacity, going back 80 years? Going back 100 years, you're able to kind of know what happened, plus know where it's going, and you could kind of see through certain passages. So let me know about that.
Well, I think, that's sort of the point, right? That obviously that derogatory references get thrown around by whites at blacks kind of nonchalantly at that time period, right? And as we see, from these hoods, and then, we'll see later from the police and what have you. And obviously we'll see Henson and others react to that. But also, of course, what you have always with the luxury of the novel is because the novel's in third person, but it's what they call, close third, right? So we're virtually with Henson through the whole book. There's a few times I cut away, but generally speaking, I think about 94% of the book is from Henson's point of view. So even as things are said to him, or even as he experiences certain things or sees certain things, we get some glimpse, of course, of what's going. Either he'll say something obviously to that, like he says to the hood right here, and through his actions and what he says back, or internally in the there's opportunities for to show something in terms of his internal landscape, what he's thinking or how he's judging these things. So that you can have that, you can fool around with it. But, and as I said, I think because I have the ability now, or the ability in this book, to look back and say, and it's not totally fiction, right? It is true that Queenie St. Clair and some of these others, Bumpy Johnson, who had come along, Bumpy's in prison actually at this point, but will get out in the early 30s. They were criminals. They did criminal things, but they also did invest in their community, particularly Queenie St. Clair. Queenie St. Clair, who was of Caribbean and French. Her father, I guess, was white. Her mother was black heritage, but was very proud to be of African descent and took it upon herself. I mean, she talked openly about paying the cops she had to pay off, the cops she had to bribe, and got in trouble for that. I mean, she put that stuff in the paper, man. She was tough. And so, but she was also, she also did reinvest. She also did give back. And so that's part of what the sort of subtext in the book is about. Yes, these are gangster figures. Yes, these figures exist outside the law. You have to take them, for good and for ill, for who they are. But you also then, one of the things we will judge them on is, of course, how they act and what do they do with the money they make, and did they spend it all themselves, or did they in fact break off some, to try to at least, in fact, aid the community as well.
Yeah, I like your that book review. It says that the first installment is a rousing adventure in the grand pulp tradition, a wildly entertaining extravaganza that almost demands to be filmed. I mean, they're like being your agent. This is a good thing, right?
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Well, who knows? We'll see. Hope springs eternal.
Yeah. So that's Matthew Henson and the Ice Temple of Harlem. And here's where to order it, right down there at the bottom of the screen. And Gary, what about, I'm going to bring Chris up and have him read, and then I'll talk with him for a minute, and then I'm going to let you guys take it on. Okay. So I'm going to bring Chris up for a minute. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we're here for Essawan, and we're driving book sales to them. So get Matthew Henson, Gary's new novel, from Essawan at this
Thank
rate.
you.
All right. Hello, Chris.
Hey.
I like your Washington City paper, that review that came out, where I thought it was really right on. Let me.
I was very happy with it. We're still waiting for the post. I mean,
well, we're on them, but I love the first line of this. It says, novels written from the perspective of homeless substance abusers don't come along every day. When they do, it's a good idea to pay attention, since they offer a window into the casual cruelty of our social economy, which much fiction eschews. Which that's as good a sentence as you could get for what your book is.
Yeah. I mean, there was a guy who has a pretty big book blog who said, he put it a little bit more indelicately. He said, I'm sick and tired of the average mystery novel, and I'm so glad Scavenger came along to kind of
Here it is, Scavenger, right here.
Yes.
So, look at us, we both have one.
Yes. How about that? It's amazing.
All right, so why don't you read from the book, Chris, and when you're done, I'll come back and we'll talk a bit, and then I'll get you and Gary together. Okay.
Okay. This is a piece I haven't really read in a while, but it kind of gives you an idea of my character is now a full-fledged gumshoe. and in the employ of a very rich person who was a cabinet member in the Trump administration, but is now running a hedge fund. And how somebody like that gets to employ a homeless addict, you're just going to have to buy the book to find out. But here he's well ensconced in being a private detective, and it isn't what he's thought it would be. By the entrance to one of the buildings, there are rows of brown paper shopping bags containing recyclables. Were you your old self, those would be fair game to pilfer and sell. But you're flush, you're important, eh? Zero clues to be found there, though. Neither are the garbage bags strewn about the periphery worth checking. Esme was many things. Trifling was not one of them. You have your old little flashlight, recharged compliments of St. Jude's supply of AA batteries. Of course, in your previous life, a dumpster was a cornucopia. Searching it in Stygian blackness is okay if, like any intrepid hyena, you follow your nose and stay alert. So with the aid of a light, you are confident that you'll mine gold quickly. You flip up one of the dumpster lids, and with the light clamped into your mouth, you descend into the strata of milk cartons, coffee grounds, chicken bones, banana peels, Kleenexes and catalogs, tampons and Target circulars, down adeptly like one of those sperm whales sounding. And yet, what is that sensation you feel? Yeah, as you literally swim through what was once your medium. Revulsion. It's like getting your virginity back. About as long as your self-respect's been AWOL. Clean clothes, a bathroom, a cot, hot food, a clear head. Though all that's compliments of Mr. Sugars, still sounds kind of good, huh? And yet here you are in a cold, rusty steel box, tasting the filth on the end of your tongue, in your nostrils. And now the fear floods you. Recall the old rubric. Don't get cut, don't get caught. Anything sharp, piercing flesh will kill you. At worst, take a finger or a leg at best. But Esme's going to be careful about account statements, canceled checks, explanations of health benefits, discarded prescription vials, hospital discharge forms, bills, traffic or court summonses, requests for immunization confirmation, school notices. A thing, an item will give her away, not a document. You can't afford to overlook anything, be it paper or prurient, as you squish and slosh, as you freeze with every rustle or hiss or squeak or scrape of little legs, of whatever else is in there scavenging with you in the dark. So that's his trip into a dumpster, which was once, as I say, his medium, and now it's an alien and very disgusting place for him, but he's back in there because he has to look for clues. So, that gives you an idea of, what he is now, as opposed to, where he started. He would have thought nothing of going in there and taking recyclables. And the only rule he had was don't get cut by anything in the dumpster. Mm-hmm. It might kill you, and now he's rustling in dumpsters and looking for clues, and it disgusts him. So it's you see, that's the playoff of the bookends of this character. And it was a pleasure to write it like that. It was a pleasure it was a labor of love to do it in second person too.
Well, that's how it grew for you. That's where it came from, and that's the writer's lament, the writers, whatever. That's where you began with it, and that's how it blossomed. So I like the second person. I think that it adds to his journey. More about him without knowing anything. Just having that there. So it's like a tell to the reader.
Yeah, it certainly is, and and I think people should think about. It's hard to write and it's hard to read too. It is a difficult read, and I understand. A lot of people have have to, even though you get the prompt in page 1, chapter 1, it's still something that people aren't accustomed to, because you're basically getting 2 characters for the price of 1.
Yeah.
And you have to read very carefully. And I'm curious how the audiobook is going to go with that.
We're still waiting to hear back from them, but I think that the fellow said, yes, I can do the Spanish, I can do the street. So, I think he sounded good. We listened to him, so I thought he was adept at the work. So I think that he'll handle the job, the task.
Well,
we're waiting still, though.
Yeah, I'm telling people, look, I mean, if the second person is tough for you, just wait till the audiobook and you can just listen to it and it'll make more sense to you.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't feel that it's that difficult to read to me. I mean,
no,
I read through it enough times with you. And I thought that it was it's a wonderful book. Look below me. On the screen, you see the link right there. We're helping SO Books. They're helping us. We're all one big happy family here in the book world right now. We're taking a big hit with the pandemic and with ignorance rampant. But books are in fashion no matter what, and people's minds are the place we want to be reaching for, and that's what we do. And Chris's book is one to reach for, along with Gary's book. So let me bring Gary back up, and we'll talk for a second, and then I'm gonna let those 2 old pals go their own way for a few minutes, and maybe I'll come back in for some questions, Q&A a little later. But so we have a homeless guy in 2020. DC, and we have an explorer in Harlem in 1920 or 20. What is it? 23? 28. Okay, a little later. He's at the end there. The depression's about to hit, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. Well, things were still happening. So you got a lot of action going on in the street with Scavenger, and you got a lot of action going on the street with Matthew Henson. It's so there's a lot of congruity there.
Well, that too, and I should say, I mean, unlike I think the old pulp stories, which were written in the as the Depression came on, right? Mm-hmm. Certainly, The Shadow and Doc Savage, which were the 2 biggest selling pulp characters. I talk about rent parties. I talk about the fact that even in 28, you had the whole notion of outside ownership of Harlem property, apartments, mm-hmm. How rents were even being gouged even then. So even then, even in 28, things were not rosy. Even as this particular historical moment happens, within Harlem, and has these reverberations, of course, outside of the Harlem itself, was recognized certainly throughout the world, and certainly in other parts of the country, so that even those realities, left politics versus conservative politics, all that stuff is sort of underlying too, because that's certainly part of the plot that gets revealed through what Matthew goes through in the book.
Yeah, you have the prohibition, of course, was had kicked in and opened up all those avenues of underground economy,
right?
And the war and also the pandemic then had necessitated that, because all of these people were now needing to do something, to work, and a lot of immigrants were coming over. So, they were able to fit into the underground economy just as easily as the normal economy.
Exactly. And you had the strange, notion of people remember that the old Cotton Club movie. When was that, man? Was that like the 80s already?
It was in the 80s.
Oh my gosh. But the point being, and I make this point in the context of the book, because I talk about Small's Paradise, which was Black owned, and I talk about some of the other clubs. But here you have the Cotton Club sitting there in the middle of Harlem, owned by whites, and in fact practicing Jim Crow within the confines of the club. Yes, black entertainers could play up on the stage, but the black patrons had to be, up in the balcony. They couldn't be out on the main floor. I mean, it is almost fantastical to think about that, or the fact that it got tolerated to some extent, right? I mean, actually, some black entertainers wouldn't even play the club because of that. Yeah. But so those kinds of things are talked about as well. The part of that tapestry for the book.
Right. Well, I'm going to cut you to some room to discuss your respective books and the respective field. So I'll be back a little later. Enjoy yourselves. All right. Here's Gary, Chris.
Okay.
I'll run those little ticker tapes down below.
Right on.
All right. See you. Where am I? I'm not leaving.
There you go.
I got to tell you, I've seen, pieces of it, and I won't say how, because I know Pinter and Chantel and all of them are probably watching, but I've seen, I was just blown away by this book before, it was ready to come out. And I was, what was interesting to me is how, you are threading the needle on a lot of different genres, because you could just as easily talk about this with somebody like Tommy Hancock on as pulp, but you could also talk to with people like Jason Pinder and Chantel and all, and that this is a crime novel, and on the more fantastical end, but still it's straddling in a whole lot of different genres, and that's hard to do. Well, and and you did it.
Well, Chris, I think as you and I both know that we've both dabbled in new pulp, right, as they call it, right, and certainly when we did the Black Pulp anthology, right, and the Black Pulp 2, but particularly when we did the first Black Pulp anthology, which Walter gave us a great intro for, right. The idea that you and I both know that, and as Peter talked about, that a character like Dickie Cornish in we didn't even call them homeless, and I guess we just call them bums or whatever we call them. In the 1930s, a black bum would just be, this quick little thing, it's just something you stepped past, some poor down and outer, on the Bowery or on the streets of Harlem, you know what I mean? Or that black characters in general, black characters, or certainly Asian characters, or Asian characters if they weren't Fu Manchu, right? The yellow peril, or certainly or Latino characters or gay characters who were there, they were the exotics, and maybe they had some weird twist to do with the crime, you know what I mean? Yeah. Or they had some weird little walk on thing, and they and then we pass them to the white hero.
Some stereotypical sidekick too.
Right. Exactly. Well, exactly. Yeah. So that part of the whole thing, as we know, from new pulp to what we're doing now, is to kind of send all that stuff up. So which is to say, we're going to reverse the camera. We're going to show you Dickie Cornish. We're going to show you this guy in the corner, and it turns out he's got a lot of stuff going on that you're not aware of, but we're going to make you aware of it. Just as we would then, just as in reality, history to a certain extent bypassed the real Matthew Henson, right? Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing and kind of ironic is that we all go back to kind of our spiritual DNA to go back to somebody like Chester Himes, but Chester's books were a lot more like this lady because if you think about it, I mean, those Harlem detective books made Coffin Ed and Gravedigger more swashbuckler.
That's right.
Types than like really kind of just it wasn't really noir.
No,
it was and a lot of people don't want to talk about that. A lot of people say it's noir and it's the birth of it. Really was more pulp. Than a lot of people
and sort of this absurdist stuff, of course, that he would do, and these sort of crazy, insane. I mean, well, eventually by the time we get the blind man with a pistol, he's not worried about plot anymore. But still, I mean, but right, Cotton Comes to Harlem and all the stuff that he would do in the context of but really is, like you said, the commentary that he wanted to come across with.
Yeah, I was because when I was writing a crime reads essay and I was talking to some people about Himes, and I was thinking about you and Naomi Hirahara, because when I was looking at Himes and where he was getting this influence from to create these characters, I had no idea that neighborhood, he met people in that neighborhood there in Central Avenue.
Yeah.
Two ex-black cops who were just ass kickers. And they weren't even scared of the rednecks back then. They would go after their own people,
right?
And
dig it.
Beat confessions out of them and everything. We got these guys, but where you guys came up in the conversation was that he met them in Central Avenue after the war. This is where Walter based Easy Rollins, and I did not know that was a Japanese neighborhood. That the government had cleared out and sent all those people to the concentration camp in Arizona and moved the black people in.
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, actually, what happened was white people bought the properties. Then they moved the black people in to pay rent to the white people who took over those Japanese people's houses.
Right. And confiscated their their businesses, their holdings. Exactly.
The influence of all of that is amazing. I wish some of these Trump people would kind of peep that.
That ain't gonna happen. But anyway.
But I mean, getting back to it, I mean, I was just blown away because when you have a character like that and you stick him, I think there are too many people that think that if you take a black character and stick a pair of those jodhpurs, those pants, jodhpurs and a pistol, and then you've got a pulp hero. Maybe with some, and I hate to say this, maybe with some, quote, traditional white characters, you can do that, but you got to have the nuance and you got to have some of those crime fiction writing skills to make that interesting. Because you're right. Because no matter how fantastical the world gets, or how fantastic it gets in Dickie's head, you're right. There's a reality that you still gotta kind of impose, because otherwise, you're right. It won't. That the modern reader, particularly people of color reading it, they ain't gonna dig it. It's not gonna mean anything to them because it's too removed from any kind of reality. Yeah, well, there's a scene in Scavenger when he's at the shelter and he's thinking a lot more clear, and he's about to go out in public with his little black Santa Claus sidekick, and the other men at the shelter had found some clothes for him, and he changed he was wearing just kind of secondhand clothes, ratty clothes, but they found some pretty nice clothing for him, and they even found his big black coat for him, and they were actually saying, "Now you look bad. You look like Shaft or something."
Exactly. Right.
I don't want. I for a split second, he started to think, I'm almost a pulper, and then he realized, no, that's not reality. And so even he got sucked into the kind of, wow, look how big and bad I am now.
Exactly.
I'm still homeless, and even though I got this big black John Shaft coat on, and God knows where they got it from, because they might probably stole it, But we don't have. I guess the key is we don't have a choice in terms of making these characters really grow and change and everything. We don't have the luxury of being lazy and being mediocre.
Hopefully we don't, but and hopefully, yet and still, I was actually thinking of I watched Walter's. I watched the replay of Walter's speech last night at the Book Awards, and he talked about the idea that in the story we can transport ourselves, right? We can take ourselves to these other places. We can take ourselves to these to these other dimensions if we want to. And I think that's great. I think that's what we want to do. We want to be able to transport people, but we also want to say along the way that we're cognizant of these realities that that exist and that have to be dealt with to some extent.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you and I did the Darker Mask, I mean, I think that was in the foreword, and we had some pretty heavy, majority people like Lorenzo Carcaterra, people like that writing stories, and even those were kind of.
My buddy, the late Jerry Rodriguez, did a crazy story about guy got his power from heroin. That was crazy, man. That was wild. Yeah.
I mean, you gotta. It was transporting people. I mean, everywhere, and you got to do that. And it's not just to give little minority children hope. I mean, it's to tell these stories and be part of the lexicon.
Right. But it is also to be able to say that within that lexicon, here is this panoply, there's a range of folks, right?
Yeah.
That you didn't necessarily see. You certainly didn't necessarily see in the olden days. And so here we have a chance to not correct the record, but at least a chance to broaden it, right? To make that palette, to make it a real palette.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't have any problem with Mickey Spillane, doing what he's doing. But you can't hold him up and say, this is the gold standard.
That's
and
right, exactly.
Ignore everybody else, and and then ignore some of his personal, peccadillos.
Hey, so look, Peter's lurking there, and as getting an hour, maybe we should bring him back so we get a few questions, and then we can.
You want me back?
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
I don't want to go on and on.
Okay, well, that's nice of you to bring me back. I'll keep. I've got a message for you, Gary, from someone here. This is a nice message. Look at this.
Oh, good.
Hey, Gary, your reading was great. The book sounds terrific. I'm going to order it. So,
thanks, Bernie.
Essawan. We've got at least one book, which is nice. That's good. Baby. And at the bottom of the screen. At the bottom of the screen, you see these banners that are going back and forth, one for Scavenger, one for Christopher's book, and one for Gary's book, Matthew Henson, The Ice Temple of Harlem. So take a look there. You can also, if you go to the comments, click on those links and go right to the page and order that way. So it's a breeze here on the internet. It would be better if we were all together live at Essawan, and we could just sign the books for you, including our other books that we did together. The Faith of the President, the Obama Inheritance. We all three worked on those too.
Exactly.
We've got a good history, and I'm very proud to be here to broaden that palette and make it more real. I think that's what this world is all about in any business, and especially in the publishing business, to have that palette be real and open for everything and everyone. And that's where we're at. And that's simple. So I don't know that we have any questions. Do we have any questions, Kat? Oh, okay. Here's one question for you, Chris. Who would star as Dickie Cornish in the movie version? And then we got one the same for you, Matthew Henson. So let's go with the movie for you, Scavenger, Dickie Cornish.
I have a distinct feeling we might say the same person. We're working. I mean, hopefully we'll get something together. I did not write this thinking of Idris Elba, but when I see his physicality, his size, and his ability, I think of somebody like him. Either he or the guy who played Black Manta in Aquaman. He's got that same physicality, but that understated physicality. So Gary, I mean, what do you think? For you?
No, of course. I mean, Idris is the man. But I'm also actually kind of partial to because actually in real life, Matthew was not that big a guy. I'm actually partial to Anthony Mackie.
Yeah,
I've always liked the cat, and I think he has a good range. I guess now he's going to be the Falcon with him and the Soldier. So he's ready to step into a solo superhero role. So
He's
yeah.
ready for some pulp, right?
He's ready for some pulp. He's ready for
All
some
right.
pulp.
I could see that. Sure.
Yeah.
That's a good choice. Let's see if we have anything else. Gary and Chris. Here. I'm going to put this up here for both of you. Shakura Amakula.
I see.
She says, "What are your writing processes?
Oh, I see. Right.
Pantsers or plotters?"
Okay, I guess I'll go first on this one.
Yeah.
I'm a plotter, but then as I write the thing, or as I write the book, I invariably throw out, I invariably go different directions. Like I'm working on a book now where I have, to a large degree, I've kept the main points of the plot, but I have to a large degree changed course or changed things that I had in the outline that I thought once I was writing the book, where I was taking the book worked better than what I had in the outline. But yes, I will tell you that maybe it's a crutch. I don't know. I'm not, but for me, I got to have that semblance of a blueprint, some semblance of where I'm going before I start.
It's very strange for me. I'm a plotter when it comes to short stories, and a pantser when it comes to novels. You'd think it'd be the other way around, but I work on a very detailed outline for short stories. For novels, I just I do that Sean Connery in Finding Forrester. Write the first draft with your heart, second draft with your head. I just throw the clay out there, do it, and then look at it later and say, now I'm going to start cutting and pasting.
There you go.
For short fiction, I definitely have a pretty detailed outline.
Very.
Well, we have a new question here. Dozell Young, do you?
Dozell. Oh, yeah.
Dozell, do you two feel freer to experiment with your fiction now that there are more Black voices extending the range of what's expected from authors of color?
And we should mention that Dozell is a writer, and Dozell also had a story in The Darker Mask. So just to be clear.
He was in Darker Mask, okay.
Yes, he was.
Too, I think, right?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. You can go first. Go ahead.
Oh, all right. Well, no, to answer the question briefly, I experiment now more with my short stories. I feel freer, sci-fi elements, Twilight Zone elements, fantastical elements. Not so much with books. I mean, although now, having said that, the book I'm contemplating now, I think might be one of those books that is going to be kind of a mashup of crime fiction and science fiction, the way I'm contemplating it. So I guess now as I've gotten older and not wiser, but probably care less about what critics think or whatever. I've never really cared what critics think. I guess I feel free to experiment more. I guess that's the answer. I've always felt free to experiment in the short story. Now I feel freer to experiment in the long form as well.
For me, I feel freer now. Scavenger was not a result of that freedom. I feel much freer now, and I feel much more supported. There's huge groups of us in crime fiction now. We even have our own group, literally.
Right.
And
crime writers of color.
And shout out to them and Kelly Garrett and everybody. For me, the experiment was this character and writing in second person. But I didn't do it because I had that freedom out there because there were more people. I did it to make a statement so that hopefully there is more freedom out there. And now I feel comfortable to now move and do different things. But for the novel, no, that was my statement for myself. But now I do feel much freer because of the community.
That's good. Okay,
should we take one more, Peter?
I don't know if I have another question.
In that case,
I can make one up.
We can make one up.
Here's a testimonial I'm putting up. I definitely intend on buying this book, so you can both think that it's.
That's right. Right.
Exactly.
I don't know if we know Dickie Rice.
Dickie Rice.
But it's both of your books. So
that's right. That's it.
Everything's cool there, and
everything's cool.
And there are banners going across the bottom, on and off for each book. The links are there. So SO1 is awaiting your order, and they will fill it.
There you go, baby.
I guess we can kind of wind things up here.
Yep.
Okay.
As we fade into the 20th. Tomorrow's the 20th, right? We got 2 months.
Wow. Yeah.
2 months to the
baby.
date till
sweet Lord.
We got a changing of the guard.
Yeah.
Let's hope. I don't know. Chris, what's going on? Have they got any kind of shot at all turning this?
Legally, no. It's just chaos theory and trying to get people as riled up and crazy as possible before the electors meet in December. But all these state legislatures, I mean, what he taketh, he giveth, he taketh away. He bullied them into not counting the ballots ahead of time, and look what happened to him. And now he's bullying them now, and it's going to be very hard to go in there to that meeting and not vote the way the state voted. That's not going to. That never happens.
Yes.
And so he's going to have to be taken out. But you see, here's the thing, Peter. I mean, we don't have a mechanism in our country to literally remove somebody physically from office. He's commander in chief. You're going to have to. I mean, the guy Mark Miley, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is probably going to have to say, "Look, I'm not going to listen to the guy if he says help protect me, but I can't send troops in there to take him out either, because it would have to be them up there giving Biden the oath of office, and then Biden says, "Look, get this bastard out of here."
Yeah. He's interloper now. Yeah.
I mean, it's an embarrassment. And you got people like Lindsey Graham running around, and the Republican National Committee had a tweet with a bunch of these nutcases giving a press conference.
What is with Giuliani? I mean, that's just like the thing, the hair dye, the stuff, the look, just running down the side of the face. I mean, it's like. But if you wrote this, if you pitch this, right, they'd say, "Oh, that's too crazy. That's too over the top." Yeah. It's nuts.
You've got a big significant portion of this country that's become a cult now, and I haven't seen anything like this since 1860.
Yeah.
Where you had a portion of the country becoming a cult.
Yeah. Wow. There we go. All right.
I mean. I don't know, man. I mean, what this is crazy, but we'll get them out of here. But I mean, what's the mess going to be when we do? And it's going to be for us to write about.
Exactly. Well, on that happy note, buy books, kids.
Yes, and I'm glad there's no wildfires and stuff out there to talk about tonight.
Well, they're there, but they're getting a little bit more contained. At least the last couple of ones we had. Yeah. There we go. All right, where's Peter go? Peter, you coming back?
You come back and say goodbye, or
come back and say goodbye? I guess not. What happened to Peter? Maybe he had to go away. All right. Okay. Well, it's been fun.
We say goodbye. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, SO1.
Thank you, SO1. Right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Here we go.
End broadcast. Hey, I'm back, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna close this off. I guess Gary and Chris left. We dropped off the internet. These things happen, right? It's like the radio days. We were live, and that's what happened. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Essawan, for carrying the books and keeping the bookstores alive and Black culture alive and the Black experience. And we're behind you 100%. Three Rooms Press is. And I know that Agora Books, part of Polis, who's carrying Gary's book, is also behind you. So thank you so much for staying in business, being in business, and working hard to continue to serve the community and serve books to everyone, which is a great effort for anyone to put out in the world. So thank you, Essawan. And thank you, Gary and Chris, Scavenger, and Matthew Henson and the Ice Temple of Harlem. I remembered it here at the end. I'm very happy. And buy those books. Go right now to Essawan and order those two books, and you'll be thankful you did, because they're both great reads, and you will enjoy them both immensely. So thank you. My name's Peter Karloftis. I'm Three Rooms Press. We publish Scavenger, and we'll be publishing a lot more fun books. So always continue to watch what we're up to, watch what Essawan's up to, and always look in to see what Gary and Chris are up to, Gary Phillips and Christopher Chambers. So thank you for joining us, and take care. And I'm ending the broadcast now. So